Okay, welcome everyone. Today's webinar is actually a first for us. We often have overviews, general ClubExpress overviews, or we do targeted webinars drilling down on particular ClubExpress functions. But we thought it was time to start doing webinars about verticals, about the way ClubExpress is being used by particular types of organizations. And since we have an awful lot of bicycle clubs represented in ClubExpress, we thought this would be a great way to start with this and then move on to other types of organizations. So we're going to do a little introduction like this. Then Bob is going to do a demonstration of a site that we set up that simulates a bicycle club. But first, let's do a little bit of housekeeping. Everybody's phones are currently muted. Questions should be asked into the chat window. A recording of this webinar and all the other webinars will be available. And if you go to the resources tab on the clubexpress.com page, we have things like blogs and video tutorials, but we have a tab for webinar. And you can see the current webinar here is in the schedule. And if you scroll down towards the bottom of the page, you will see a recent webinars page. So you can get to the recorded webinars. Video tutorials that are drilled down on particular modules are also represented here and on the control panel support tab in your club. There is one other thing that we'd really like for you to do if you get a chance, is we have a page called clubexpress.com/reviews, and this links to a few review sites. So if you're using ClubExpress and you like ClubExpress, we'd appreciate it if you'd leave some reviews so other people can find out how you are using ClubExpress and how you like using ClubExpress. So I'm going to turn this over to Bob. And Bob, can you share your screen and talk about what you're going to talk about?
So welcome everyone. I've done a number of these demonstrations. I've spoken to some of you that are on the call, and I welcome you and thank you for attending. What today is about, and I do notice there are some people on here that are not from bicycle clubs also, so I promise you'll still get a lot out of this. But what I wanted to do is focus not only on what ClubExpress does and how it operates from a membership standpoint, from events, from emailing, communicating with your members, but also specifics for how bicycle clubs use ClubExpress to manage things like cue sheets, ride logs. If you're a mountain biking or trail biking association, trails maintenance and showing what the statuses of the various trails are. So we're going to look at a number of different items here. And then at the end, hopefully, we'll have a little time for some questions. So this site clearly was built specifically for bicycle clubs. This is a fictitious bicycle club, so it doesn't really exist. But this is, and I want to stress this to everybody, the live platform. So as you're watching this is real. If you choose to go with ClubExpress, what you see here is exactly what you're going to have, the way it's going to operate for you. Right now, we are not logged in. You see a member login button on top. You see some menu items there, including a place where members can sign up, which we're not going to go through right now. And as I scroll down, here we've got a slideshow. There are some various buttons here for forums and ride logs and just different ways of getting to things. Down on bottom, I've got a scrolling thing of sponsors. So website templates are built into this. We can do custom websites. We even give you access to build your own if you know how to do CSS programming. But the website I don't want to dwell on. I just want to say that we can make these look like anything. So don't be hung up with the way this looks. So I am going to log in. And I'm logging in as a gentleman named Martin Smith. Martin's name now appears up here, and immediately you see two things happen. One, Martin has an outstanding balance. So it's letting him know here that he can go and pay for it right now if he wants. We'll touch on that later on. I'll close that. This dollar sign up there also lets him know there's an outstanding balance. Subtly, on every page he's on, he's going to see that. When I hover over this, his name, a link to his profile will open. Another payment due that'll take us to the same page. And the way I'm going to start this is by going to his profile. So this is the way a member, as Martin's looking at his own profile, even though he's an administrator of the site, he's looking at his own profile here, has all of his contact information, how he wants to be listed in the directory, all of the history of things he's done, different options that he's selected out here. We're going to touch on some of these before we really get into the functionality of what the site can do. What's important with these, particularly if you're running a website today that you're managing membership either in Excel or the members don't have access to their own contact information, here we've got, Martin has the ability to maintain everything here and update his contact information on his own. So here is his primary address, his primary phone number. Let's change this to the ClubExpress phone number. I do not believe that we've got, let's put my email address in there and we'll save it. Now I'm doing that now because I want to show you that the change now has been made. The phone number, the email address, everything's done in real time. It's backed up in real time. So the system itself, all that for you and allows your members to do it. As membership managers, a lot of people spend time trying to keep in contact with their members, making sure that they've got the right email address, phone number. You have your members maintain that on their own. With this, like many membership and club management systems, there is a member directory. We take privacy very seriously. Particularly now, we've got some people that are in Belgium that are really US based on the phone. But if I do have anyone in Europe here, members have to be able to have the ability to exclude certain information, up to and including don't list me. So this is totally up to the member. We can link to various social media on their profile. And the member themselves can put in a biography themselves. Now this, I don't remember who it was, but I copied someone who was a bicycle racer, just changed the picture here and changed the name. So this was actually just copied and pasted from Wikipedia. And that, of course, is where they upload their photo. Before I go to the directory, they also have all of their history here. Everything they've done, everything they've registered for, everything they've paid. If anyone's a treasurer or manages the finances on the phone, all of their payment history is here, including itemized receipts. So if someone, particularly if a 501c3, and someone needs a copy of their receipt for tax purposes, up will come this. They can print it off. They can save it as a PDF and use it for their taxes. So that is all in here. Any open balances will show here, including actually open and paid. Events or rides they've registered for, any additional things, volunteering they've done. I'll show you some of these other things as we get into this further. So, okay, we're back on the home page. So now we're looking at what we saw from the outside, but the menu itself has changed. So while the events were there, many things that you could not see. In fact, I'm going to log out for a moment and go to the event calendar. And this is fairly blank. The only thing we've got here is a Century ride coming up this Saturday. But if I log back in, now we've got all our daily rides showing up. So in this case, this club has 2 rides a day, one in the morning, one in the afternoon. Some of you, particularly, I think there was the Quad Cities, you said you have 1,000 members, you may have several rides a day, in which case you may want to show the calendar this way. So it's not too cluttered. I'm going to go back to the other view though, so it's easier for me to use when there aren't as many. Now I've done something special here with the events. And this is what we call a custom page, which is essentially content. So I've set this up so it describes the ride itself, and notice I have one for every day. There's a widget here that's pulling from the event calendar. itself, and it's only showing those things that are visible, that are available on Mondays, or Sundays, I'm sorry, because it's a Sunday ride. And the ride leader has the ability to blog here to put announcements up. So for example, you see here that the April 22nd ride was canceled. Well, here's an explanation of why it was canceled. Because there is another ride, this blue ribbon ride, that's scheduled on the same day. All right. That's actually taking me to all my blogs. So if I want to sign up for the Monday morning ride, this takes me to that calendar page. Now, I've set this up so registration is required, although that's not, you don't need to do that. This here is for administrators only. So you have to be an administrator of the calendar in order to see these tools. There's actually a wizard in here that takes you through creating events. Once the event's created, this shows up, and I can get into different components of the wizard here. So this is telling, I have different categories in here. This is telling the system that it's a Sunday ride, and it should display it on that Sunday page. I've made this visible to members only, but I could make this visible to everyone. This is kind of an interesting one here. If I make this visible to everyone but details for members, when someone that's not logged in goes to register for it, it's going to take them to the login page where it says, click here to register if you're not a member. Now, I've made registration required here, but I have other options here. I can make it not required, recommended. I can even put this to an external site. So if you've got a sister club that's having a century, then your members are invited to that, or just a ride for charity. If I choose external, this page will refresh and allow me to put the link to where the registration is done on their site. They don't have to be a ClubExpress website. They can be any website that has registration on it. It'll take them to that page. Now, one of the other things that's interesting about ClubExpress is we allow you to store in here people that are not members, and we provide that for free up to 5 times your membership. So again, using Quad Cities as an example, with about 1,000 members, you can have 5,000 people in here that are not members, that have never been members. We're going to distinguish non-members from expired members. They sit in a different category. But you can define exactly what it is you want to capture from them. So what information do you want that you want in your database so you can reach out to them? So clearly I want an email address. So I may reach out to them later on and say, because they've registered for an event or a specific event, I want to email them and invite them to something else. When they get that email and go to register, it's going to ask them to enter their first name and their email address, and it'll fill in the rest of the information for them. If they're not in the database, it's going to ask for everything that you require from them. Right? Now, since I required registration and Martin's not registered for this right now, let me just walk you through how simple this is. In this case, there's nothing special about this. It's a Sunday ride. Here's the address. Here's the information on the event itself. When I click complete registration, since there's no payment required for this, he's now registered. Now, you may want to do something special like embed a waiver of liability. I'll show you that in a second. Now, for liability purposes and insurance purposes, if you want to check people in, now Martin's the only one that's registered for this. Let me check this one. If you want to check people in to say that they haven't registered or they've registered and they've attended, so you have a list of who's attended, just have to check them off. Click Save. And now, this here is a search engine for your ride leaders and administrators that shows who's registered for the event. Remember, Martin was the only one registered. Now I've got these other ones I checked off that are also registered. And we're saying have attended the activity. So you've got a list of people that have actually attended, you know, for liability reasons, who's attended the event. So we go back to this page. All right, so let me go back to my calendar. Let me show you one other thing. So here's a Century event. that we put in. Now this one I've made a little bit more robust. I've got links to different cue sheets. I've got links to purchase things. I've got photos. So you can do a lot of fancy things in here. And notice down here, registration is required and there are fees associated with this. There's a fee for members, there's a different fee for non-members, and there's an early bird discount, which we've missed, right? So if I'm a member and I'm going to register, the cost is now $85 instead of $75. There's also an optional activity where there's a fee of spaghetti dinner. All right, so let me go back up. Let's register for this. Martin is already registered. Now Martin's an administrator. So actually I'm going to sign up a non-member and I'm going to look for someone. Here's what we've required. I'm going to search for someone in the database and that's going to fill all that in for me. Notice because they're not a member, it says non-member down there. All right. I can bring a guest with me. Now you can define what you want to include in here and it will charge them appropriately. I can have that pre-checked, which for some reason I didn't. So the Friday night, the spaghetti feed is optional, but let's say I want to do that. Now if I want, I could ask a question there, which I didn't do here for time purposes. I can say, do you have any food allergies or sensitivities? What type of sauce do you want on your spaghetti? And I can present all that to the chef ahead of time. I've also embedded a waiver of liability here. So if I don't agree to this and I go to check, it's saying I have to agree to the waiver before I can move forward. All right, so let's check that. Go ahead. It's showing me my cost, which is the $125 and the $15 for the dinner. Now, I said this is live. Now, I don't know. I pass out this login information to a lot of people as I do demonstrations. So if there's a live email address, I don't want someone to actually get an invoice by email and not know what it is, so I'm unchecking that. Registration's been saved. We support discount coupons. Now, we're logged in as an administrator. So if I were just logged in as a regular member or as a non-member, the payment method shown would be any of these depending on what you want to do, or it could be all of them. Pay by credit card, pay by PayPal, pay by cash or check. But because I'm logged in as an administrator, what we're going to see here is about receiving money. Now notice that credit cards and PayPal aren't shown here. There's a reason for that. This is live. And we've actually had people accidentally not realize that, put their credit card information in and get charged. And we wanted to not allow that to happen, make sure that someone doesn't actually charge themselves. If I were to cancel payment on this, they're still registered, but they are going to show up as not having paid. So here is the non-member Barbara Brewer that's registered, but they're open, and notice this $sign here shows they haven't paid. So if they show up at the event, you know they haven't paid. This will bring you to that, and you can collect money from them. All right, and now they're showing as paid. All right. If I want to see the detail, they've signed up for that, and they've also signed up for the dinner. There's plenty of reporting in here, so if I want to know who's registered, who hasn't paid, I want to know activity registrants by activity. So that says, did they register for the century? Did they register for the dinner? Right? I can get all that information, get detail. If I want to provide the chef, who's registered and what they've answered, what type of spaghetti sauce do they want, or if it's a banquet, did you choose the steak, the chicken, the vegetarian, the fish? I can do name tags. So all of these are in here for you to use. All right. Now I'm going to skip ahead here. I clicked another one that's taking me to emailing. Now here I can go, and we didn't look at the control panel. We're going to look at that later. I can go to the control panel and go to email and create it from there, but I did this from the event because the system actually knows what event I came from. Now, some of you may be familiar with MailChimp or Constant Contact. We work very similarly to them, but the database is already part of this, so you don't have to manipulate any spreadsheets. Let's just grab one of these at random. And it's going to ask me to fill in a subject. Now, I can categorize this in different ways. I only have one in here, newsletters, but I can create as many categories as I want and report on the success of my email by category. Let's save that. Now it's giving me a warning. I don't have a distribution list. So if I click on that, it says please click the edit icon, which is over here, to create the list. Notice the first thing that comes up, everyone registered for the event. My list is done. I don't have to manipulate a spreadsheet. It knows who's registered. It's created the list. And actually, the first 7 things listed here all have to do with the event itself. If I want to send something out to people who haven't registered, and by the way, the system will do that automatically if you set up the event that way, reminding people to register. People who've paid or haven't paid, if I want to send something out to people who've registered for the dinner, letting them know that there's been a menu change. People who have attended the event, who you've checked in. So there are many options here for the event itself. But if I came here from just the email system on its own, it would actually start there. And I can do anything in here and combinations of them. So if I want to copy my board, if I want to copy the ride committee, if I want to send this to non-members who registered for events before, I can just keep doing this. It'll deduplicate across these because these are all members. Clearly, there's going to be some duplication. And if I want to save this for the future, I know that 6 months from now, I'm going to pull this same list, or at least this same query. What this is going to do is it will rerun this when I do it, because this may be completely different 6 months from now. So I would just name this, let's call this test 6. 6 months from now, that I may want to pull that again, and it will then pull the list based on when I run it, not when I created it as of today. It will tell you how many are going to be sent. Now, I've got invalid emails in here, right? So don't worry about this. Yours, you will not have invalid emails, and or you may, but you will actually have not a negative number in here. And I can personalize this. So like MailChimp, like Microsoft Mail Merge, if I want to say dear and put in here a first name, and there are other things I can pull from the database. So I can personalize every email that goes out of the system. All right, it's not just going to be a blanket email. And by the way, changing an image in here is as simple as doing that and uploading a new file. Or if it's already in the database, you can find it. All right. Some people like to send a test to themselves before it goes out so they can see it and make sure it looks good. And then you can send it once you're done. Now over here, we've got different options for your email. So like the paid email services, there are templates in the system. I showed you, you can create your own. Here are things you can use without having to know HTML to build your template. If you'd rather use an attachment, then use some type of functionality here. Let's say you want to attach a newsletter rather than use a newsletter template. All that's done here. Now this is really what's happening in the background. You don't have to know anything about this to do it. It's just translating it for you. But if you wanted to do something special, you don't have to go in there. The functionality is here to make those changes. All right. Now, I'm not going to go into the reporting. I'm not going to show you the reporting on this because we're already a half hour into this, and there are other things I want to show you. But on a high level, it'll let you know once you send it how many emails were sent, how many were opened, how many bounced, how many unsubscribed. Yes, we're fully compliant with the Canned Spam Act, so it's we follow all the the legality, the rules, the laws surrounding sending emails. And then I can drill down to, so if you send one to bob@clubexpress.com, you would know if and when I opened it and other things about it. All right, I'm going to pause for a moment because I've shown events, I've shown the member profile, I've shown emailing. Any questions so far?
One of the questions that was asked in the chat window was whether the registrations, could they be exported via CSV or Excel?
Yes.
And right now, the short answer is that all reports in ClubExpress can be formatted in many ways, and one of those ways is sending out to a CSV.
Yeah. So if I want to look at my event registrants, I went into my reporting button, clicked event registrants as the report. Those are my options for every report that's in the system.
Yeah, there's also another way, depending on whether you're an administrator. In many of the modules, there are specific export buttons that are not reports, but will just send out a whole bunch of data based on date ranges. So there's a lot of flexibility in being able to get data out of the system for you to analyze in other tools.
Good. Thank you. Now, I'm back in this page again that I showed you earlier. And there are a couple things I want to show you here. Now, I'm hovering over, you may have noticed this little tab hanging out over there. This brings me to help. I'm going to show you that on another page. But I'm going to click the edit button here. And that's just a shortcut to get to the content window, the editor page. Now I look at this, all I've done is I've used these boxes here to format the page the way I want it to look. And I've entered the information I want. Now these two things here, the ride schedule and the blogs, these are widgets. Widgets are available here. Right? So if I want to look at insert on my homepage, for example, the trail statuses, or I want to put my Facebook feed or Twitter feed on the homepage, these are all pre-built. Now, if I want to look at the schedule, what I've done here is I've said only show me the Sunday rides, because I'm on the Sunday page, and I want to go 30 days in the future. I can set this as far in advance as I want. Similarly with the blogs, I've just called it ride announcements, and it's the Sunday ride blog, and I'm looking 365 days here. All right? But that's what the editor is. You don't have to know this stuff. This is what's happening in the background. This means virtually nothing to me, and I'm sure to many of you. But you don't have to know anything about that in order to use our system. So everyone's got committees. Okay, we've got that scrolling thing down on bottom again. Here's a typical board of directors, and most will not show their email addresses, but I've just displayed these here, and there's an email button where if I wanted to send something as a member, or whoever you display this to the board, or whatever committee you have up here, this will blast in the background to the email addresses that you may have hidden here that wouldn't display. Let me go back to this and look at help. Unlike other club management systems, we have our programmers hard code help to the page you're on, no matter where you are on the site. So this helps with explain what the committees do. Now I can go to a home page where I can still search for whatever I want. Most systems do that. They'll bring you to a search engine. But if I click on edit here to get to the back end of the committee functionality, and I hit help here, now notice I've got committee administration, including video tutorials and other information on how to do that. All right? And that happens everywhere on the site. All right, now let's get to some bicycle-specific things. I want to go to, actually first, the document library. Right? Now I've got in here a Q sheet library. Right? Notice I've got all different types of formats in here. I've got PDF files, I have Word documents, I've got Excel files. If you use Garmin, you can upload Garmin files in here. We can upload whatever you want, image files. And then this would allow me to open that up. Actually, I chose a Word document, so it's, if I choose PDF, it's gonna. All right, here's a typical Q sheet. So there's just the Q sheet I uploaded in there in a PDF file. Okay. Now, if I go into the back end of this one, I just want to show one thing real fast. So here's one that says Board of Directors. Now, if I open the menu here, notice the visibility I've set says Board of Directors here. So I can set this to any committee I want. And the only people that can see that folder are people that are in that specific committee or are full administrators or have administrative access to the document library. Right? So your regular members won't see that. Right? Now, if I go to the Q Sheet module, it opens up a search engine. All right, so I can find anything with back in it. Or you can tag these in different ways. So if I want to look for all rides that are between 50 and 75 miles, it'll bring up those sheets. And I want to refine it further and say the effort index is 50 to 70. See if it brings anything up. Okay. So it will continue to refine that down for you. The other thing that's in here, and I wanted to do a little more work on this, but we offer a ride log also that your ride leaders can administrate. So as a ride leader goes in and says a rider put in X number of miles in the ride, it will also track their mileage and how many rides they've led in a particular year. Now this goes back. It will track prior years also, right, and display them. All right. Now, we've got the Chicago Trail Riders on the line. So let me show you this real fast. So I put in here things for different, in the city of Chicago and in some of the suburbs. But here are 4 paths that I've got in here. If I want to display the map, you can upload the map in whatever format you want. In administering these, a trail leader can put in here other information, the status, if it was groomed. You can create whatever statuses you want on grooming. So these are all configurable. And then you can enter conditions and other information, they'll all show up. I don't know if you noticed it before, when we were in the page editor that I showed you, the content editor, one of the widgets available was a trail widget you can put on your home page that would list all the trails and their statuses. All right. Now I did something interesting here, and I don't usually show this to bicycle clubs, but we've got a module in here called collectibles. Many clubs, you've got riders who have multiple bikes, and if they want to display several of them and show them on their profiles, they can. So if I go to, let me go to Mara Abbott's. Okay, so here's the directory. We show a map of where people are at. I don't know why the pictures aren't open. Here's Mara. I've got a sample in here of a biography she could put in showing that I could do hyperlinks. When I hit collectibles, it brings me to her bike. If I want to view it, here's the information and questions that were asked as she entered it. It's a road bike, frames aluminum, it uses disc brakes. Now I'm going to pause again. There are a number of things in here I have not shown. So clearly, we can handle volunteering, and as some of you require volunteer hours, so it will track volunteering hours by member and report that out to you. And by the way, the document library, photo storage is unlimited. There is no extra charge for bandwidth or storage space. The number of pages you can have on your site is unlimited. The number of emails you can send is unlimited, as long as you're not spamming. Is there anything in this list that anyone wants to see? If not, I'm going to jump into the control panel and show you the back end of maintaining the site.
There are a couple of things here that's worth noting. The photos section, which would be very useful for a bicycle club. There are two types of photo albums. You have photo albums that are club-based, where your club administrators control what goes into them, but every member can have one or more photo albums. So if they want to upload their photos of a particular event, you don't have to send them to the webmaster who then gets to upload them. They can handle it themselves. So that's a wonderful thing, taking a lot of pressure off of the webmaster. There are a couple of questions that have been asked. One is there QuickBooks integration?
Yes.
The answer is yes. And if you are integrated, there's a field that will come up with pretty much any time you ask. It's asking you for an account. It'll also ask you which QuickBook item you need.
Yeah, it just maps directly into the QuickBooks chart of accounts, and it will work with any desktop version of Windows QuickBooks and the online version.
Yeah.
We do not work with Mac versions right now.
All right. Another question is, are the web pages responsive so that it works on all formats? And the answer is, if you just go back into one of your pages for a moment.
Yeah. Let's go to About Us.
Any one of the pages, and now go into edit mode.
Mm-hmm.
You'll see that on the right-hand side, there are boxes that insert page rows. In the past, page layout was mostly handled by tables. But to be more responsive, these are actually being handled behind the scenes as divs. So that's the reason why you want to use these page rows and then put content into the page rows. Page rows can be nested, and this will allow it to be more responsive. There is I think a video and a webinar on the advanced content editor, and that will explain how these things are used. Okay, I think there was one other question.
Alan, before we go off that one, everything else on the site is completely mobile responsive. The content pages, you need to tell the site how you want it to respond. Everything else will automatically optimize to whatever mobile device you're on, vertical, horizontal, but it will automatically do that no matter where you are on the site. Bring up demobike.clubexpress.com on your tablet or your phone. You'll see that it's mobile responsive. We also have a mobile app that's optional that would be customized to the club.
Okay. Another question says, is there any type of election module to handle elections or votes online? And it turns out that our survey module is actually being used by many clubs to handle elections, because you can specify that only members can fill out the survey and they can only fill it out once.
There's also an anonymizer. So yes, they can fill it out. They can only fill out the survey one time, and the vote would come into you anonymously if you choose that.
Another question says, is there any integration with Meetup and or Ride with GPS?
So the answer to that, let me start with Ride with GPS. We do integrate through the cue sheets. So if I go into the cue sheet module, and let me take out the filter here. I don't remember which one of these have them here. So I can build a link to Ride with GPS that will bring up the cue sheet there, but that is the extent of our integration at this point. Now with Meetup, no, we do not have integration with Meetup other than within a member's profile. If they want to link to a specific Meetup page, is this here? Yeah. So there it is. So I could put a link to Meetup and that would show up on their profile. You could put a link to Meetup along wherever this would show. It usually shows on top, but you can have a link of a dozen social media platforms here that would take you back.
There is one other approach that I've seen used in the mobile app that Bob was describing, as opposed to just using the web interface on a mobile phone. If you have a mobile app, there is actually chat and meet functionality built into the app so that people can arrange to meet with each other. Your members can arrange to meet with each other. I think we'll do a separate webinar on that in the foreseeable future.
Yeah. And then also, just since we're on social media, you can push any event if you want to solicit donations, any volunteering that you need, out to your Facebook or Twitter page or whatever you're using, so that when people click on it, it will bring them back to the site. I don't have it set up on this particular site, but you could create a box on here where you bring in, and you saw that in the widgets I showed you, you can embed your Twitter feed or your Facebook feed or what have you. And it will automatically in real time pull that in. I could show it on a different site, but we're running short on time.
But going in the other direction, you can share individual pages and events and things like that to your Facebook page and other sharing sites.
Here's an example. I do want to get back into the control panel. So this is where the administrators work, and Martin, being a full administrator, has access to everything in here. So, you know, administrators, full administrators to the site see every tab, and they see every item here. So every one of these does exactly what it says. We try to separate it to make it easy for you. So anything having to do with the people in the database are here. Anything having to do with the website, the content, the pages, the menus are on the website tab. Your financial transactions and searches are here. Anything about the club itself, your committees, your document library, and how you communicate with your members are here. Support's slightly different. I'll touch on that in a minute. But these 5 tabs are all set up the same way too. So administrative functions, by the way, there's a lot in here. We work with thousands of clubs and professional associations. Not one of them uses everything we offer. So please do not be overwhelmed with what you see in here. Nobody uses everything that's there. Our philosophy is you may want to use it one day and you'll just turn it on when you need it. So administrative functions, managing the club day to day, is up on top. Reporting always follows in the second box. There are over 400 reports in the system, many of them modifiable in different ways. So you can filter them, segment them, look at specific time periods, what have you. And then setup is on bottom, where you would, you know, initially configure the site, or we would do it for you. Or if you do some fundamental change, you want to change the look a year from now, you add a membership type, so on and so forth. You can have as many member types as you want, each with different durations. You could have month-to-month membership, annual membership, trial memberships, lifetime memberships. In terms of renewals, this is set up, this particular site is set up to roll renewals based on when people join. But if you have everyone renewing in January, that's fine too. The system will automatically send out renewal notices on your behalf at whatever schedule you want. Right? That last one, notice, is negative. So 2 days after they expire, that one's going to go out. Doesn't have to be a negative number. Right? And optionally, for clubs that want this, if you've got small staffs and you just don't have the resources, you can set one or more of these this way, which tells us, I have to stress this, to mail a renewal notice for you. The support tab's slightly different, or very different. This explains the online help, that it's context sensitive to the page you're on. We are one of the only software companies that's out there that still has an old style user's guide. Now, one of the real cool things about ClubExpress is we're constantly updating and constantly revising it. We do major releases every 3 to 4 months. We did our last one this time last month. So we updated our manual then. The other thing that's interesting, I want to point this out. So I had a club where family members shared a computer and each had their own login. And somebody checked the box that said, "Keep me logged in." And I mentioned that to our developers, and a few days later, this showed up. So when good and easy things show up that are helpful to everybody, it may just roll out automatically. Here are the tutorials and videos and webinars that Alan mentioned. There are a lot out here. Everything in the control panel, there's a webinar, there's either a tutorial or a webinar on how to do. And one of the things we started doing recently, let me go up to the top here, is we'll do not just webinars that are deep dives into functionality, but also webinars into how certain people in the club would use ClubExpress. The example here being, how does a treasurer use ClubExpress? Right. And then lastly, or last 2 things, there is an administrator forum, which I don't have turned on this site, where every administrator, everyone that's an administrator in a club, has access to this. and it goes across every single club and association that uses ClubExpress. So if you want to post something, we've got people out there that love to answer your questions. We monitor this also. There's a person on our support team who one of his primary responsibilities is to monitor and respond to these. And this is where we get a lot of our ideas for upcoming changes and future releases. All right. One of the real advantages to using ClubExpress also is very simply this. We do the technical support for your website. So from 7:30 to 6 Central Time, we man the phones. They're answered here. We're just outside of Chicago. We have specialists that typically answer the phone within a couple rings. And this is how you reach us. This is visible not just to your administrators, but to your members. And really, if you have the Contact Us page on your regular homepage when you're not logged in, this is also displayed. I do want to show one other thing before we're out of time in the control panel. So Martin, being a full administrator, can see everything, but there are many times you want someone to be able to send an email but not see your private member information or not be able to get into your financial data. So you can here add what we call a coordinator. A coordinator will see the control panel but then only see what you give them access to. And that might be a specific page. You want a ride leader that controls your Sunday rides to control that page. That's all they'd see. Or they can have access to multiple things in here. So if I go down to the club and here down to setup, where I can create and add administrators or what we call coordinators, I can say this Rob Banks has access to these things on members, but nothing else, can create events. So when they log in, that's all they're going to see. They'll see the control panel, and when they go in, so you have complete control over what your ride leaders have access to and what different people in the administration of the club have access to, so you limit risk. We are bumping up on time, so I want to stop and see, Alan, did you get any other questions, and open up to any questions that anyone else might have.
Yeah, we have another question, an interesting question. Question says, can membership info be entered on a mobile device, including acceptance of payment via Square Reader or something like that for a credit card?
So today, anything that can be done on the user side of the website can be done on the app. On the mobile website, anything that can be done both administratively or from a user side can be done on the mobile version of the website, which is just putting demobike.clubexpressin.com on your phone or your tablet. For payment methods today, we do not integrate with Square or Stripe. We do integrate with PayPal. We're working on Stripe right now, and others will follow. So here, one of the options here on payment methods is processed by a separate system. So notice here, actually, this is an interesting one because this person had a credit balance, and it automatically applied that. So this $500 charge, they're only owed $262. If you take something by Stripe, no, we do not at this point allow swiping directly into the application. If you do that, you would put processed by a separate system, and when you record the payment, I'm not sure why this is not opening right now, but a box opens up to put the transaction number. But we are working on integration so that you could do some kind of a plug-in to swipe cards. I do not know when that's going to be available, so I don't want to promise that it's going to be out in any particular time frame. But I know that's something that it is on our enhancement list for the future.
All right. Well, to be respectful of everybody's time, we're going to wrap it up. I thank you very much for coming. If you have any questions, you can either ask them in the admin forum, or more importantly, you can give Bob a call, and he'll be very happy to talk to you about your club. And if it's a support question, our support people, as Bob mentioned, are standing ready by the phones to answer your questions.
Yeah.
So thank you all for coming, and we will see you in the next webinar.
All right. Thank you, everyone. I really appreciate your attending.